a cultivator at the early stage of foundation establishment. Unexpectedly, Han Li, who is at the mid-stage of foundation establishment, needs a magic weapon. Can you believe it? It turns out that Han Li, who was far away from Tianan heading to Dajin, encountered some unexpected people along the way. For various reasons, he was forced to kill. After killing several of them, he was heavily injured and managed to escape. Later, due to sealing the evil energy, his cultivation temporarily dropped to the early stage of foundation establishment. He mixed into a low-level cultivator's convoy to avoid being hunted by the unexpected people. Along the way, after saving someone from this convoy, unexpectedly, he caught the attention of a cultivator at the early stage of foundation establishment. Han Li's magic weapon. Fellow Taoist, would you be willing to part with your non-true magic weapon and spirit pet? I am willing to pay a high price to buy it. What Han Li never expected was that the man in the blue robe, after sizing up these two centipedes, would eagerly say such a thing. After a moment of silence, Han Li chuckled. Fellow Taoist, are you joking? Lin Chong has already recognized its master, not to mention this non-true magic weapon. Even if I were willing to sell, you might not be able to afford it. It's not a problem for now. Fellow Taoist, feel free to name your price. It seems that the man in the southern robe is quite wealthy. Without thinking, he said, having seen Han Li just now controlling this true magic weapon, after the instant kill invitation. This person felt a bit heated inside. Han Li heard these words. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but after staring at the other person for a while, her expression turned serious. She coldly said, I apologize. This is something I am currently using. I have no intention of selling it for now. If you are unwilling, then so be it. If I had such a sharp weapon, I wouldn't easily part with it. Just pretend I didn't say anything. Indeed, I haven't even thanked you for saving my life yet. May I ask for your esteemed name? I feel disappointed to not know a friend. But after a slight turn of her eyes, she politely asked, My surname is Han. Let's have someone tidy up first. Han Mi said calmly. After tidying up the blue-robed person, she straightened. After glancing around, she noticed that at some point, those mortals who had been hiding everywhere had already stood up, but everyone showed a look of awe. Crowded in the area outside the 10 tents, only Yin Lu and that burly man showed excitement as they stood nearby, listening to the two immortals converse. The old man couldn't help but smile widely. Just now, he was watching closely. These three beasts are simply unbeatable for them, but they can send an invitation. Almost all of them came halfway. They were eliminated by Master Han. This master has great powers, far beyond what he expected. It's truly a pleasant surprise. It seems that even if I lead the way alone, there shouldn't be too many problems. You guys handle these few demon hands. Aside from a few long scales on the claws and tail, the fur and flesh are useless to me. You can keep them, Han Li said to the big man and the old man, in a commanding tone. According to the rules on the grassland, whatever beast you kill, the spoils naturally belong to you. Although in reality, these low-level materials are not worth her attention, she is merely playing the role of a resident machine. Naturally, she cannot treat them as worthless. It is to strictly follow the master's orders. The old man responded with a sigh. Although the flesh and skin are insignificant for cultivators, they are rare items for us mortals. They can be exchanged for quite a few good things. You can exchange for quite a few good things. The strong man also responded with reverence from the side. After a round of shouting from the two, several strong young men immediately walked over. They headed towards the corpse invited by the three. They were preparing to handle the trial body as instructed by Han Li. The one that Han Li killed with the flying needle was fine, but the two that were frozen needed to be smashed with a big hammer. If Feng Xian is fine, you can go back and rest. Han Li was also a bit tired, so she decided to head back to the car first. Han Li turned back and coldly said to the man in the blue robe, and without waiting for him to say anything, she turned back to her car. The man in the blue robe, seeing Han Li's indifferent attitude, felt a chill in his heart. Originally, seeing how powerful the other party's spirit insect was, he wanted to make further connections with ulterior motives. But unexpectedly, the other party didn't even give him a chance to speak, and left so coldly. This made him feel awkward. However, since the other party had just helped him, and their strength was clearly extraordinary, he couldn't really lose his temper. After half a session, the man in the blue robe finally sighed, feeling somewhat relieved as he returned to his own car. He did not know. He doesn't know. Han Li sat cross-legged in the car. Her gaze flickered as she watched his back. She appeared lost in thought, silent. The master has some background, but why is the master so distant with him? A strange sound of music echoed in Han Li's mind. After this period of admiration for him, this female Kursi, although still greatly weakened, finally managed to speak without hesitation. This person is not an ordinary individual. How does the master know about this? As soon as Han Li opened her mouth, it was earth-shattering. The music couldn't help but be startled. Look at what this is. Han Li suddenly reached out with one hand into the void. Instantly, a ball of clear light appeared. It then transformed into a shadow resembling a jade pendant. Several ancient characters were engraved on it. This is the ancient script of the Great Jin. The music was surprised once again. Actually, if I hadn't acted just now, this person probably wouldn't have been in any danger. This object is a jade pendant carried by Feng Yue. It is a top-tier magical artifact. Whenever the invitation approaches, it automatically emits waves of ethereal energy. It should have an automatic mutual assistance effect. Although it was hidden at his waist, how could a mere layer of obstruction block my tomb? It's clear to see naturally. You should recognize the Great Jin characters on this. Based on these few words, this person is likely from a prominent family in Great Jin. He said lightly, "That's correct. The title you used, Feng, indeed, is a form of address favored by the noble families of Great Jin. It seems this friend Feng should indeed be a Taoist friend named Feng. However, which place are you referring to? Is it Yinchuan County among the 36 major counties of Great Jin, or Shining Prefecture among the 108 states? Or perhaps just a common city with the character Ning in its name?" Yingyi pondered for a moment. Since he was coming to Great Jin, Han Li naturally collected many texts on Great Jin's customs, geography, and other aspects. Yingyi also read quite a bit, and the orphan casually spoke these words. He felt no surprise at all. No matter which noble family this person belongs to in Great Jin, the mere appearance of an individual on the azure grassland signifies trouble. It's best to minimize contact with the other party. Now we just need to wait. The thought of leaving the grassland is only to first find a way to dispel the ominous energy on me. After saying this, first, find a way to dispel the negative energy on your body. After saying this, Han Li expressionlessly closed her eyes. That's true. This person, with their initial identity as a machine operator, is equipped with such a protective artifact. They must be an important figure from the Feng family, but now, they are hidden among the tribute team of a small tribe. They must be in big trouble. Vaguely, Qingxiao agreed. Then the woman stopped saying anything. The vehicle fell silent again. At this moment, the few young men outside finally smashed a large blocks of ice with a heavy hammer. They began to disassemble the 3 rescued and skinned bodies. Then they sent the 6 most precious clawed feet and a dozen long bones to Han Li. The remaining 2 tribes unceremoniously divided the rest. Of course, since Han Li was the honored guest invited by the Kanglu tribe, the Kanglu tribe naturally took the largest share, although the Ba Crossing tribe didn't get much, since it was an unexpected gain, and no one was injured during the surprise attack. They were naturally pleased as well. Meanwhile, in a sealed carriage of the Hong Lang tribe, the rock was on the cart. The person named Landau seemed to find it inconvenient to wear a cloak. That Landau seemed to feel that wearing a cloak was somewhat inconvenient. He has removed the fabric from his head. This revealed a fair face. Except for slightly thinner lips, he could be considered handsome and tall. At this moment, his face was cold and silent. Suddenly, he began to search around his neck with one hand. He surprisingly pulled out a golden chain. One end of the chain was attached to a silver key. The key was about the thickness of a few fingers and several inches long. It was covered with mysterious and ancient patterns. Additionally, on the oval top, it bore the inscription of a golden character meaning peak. Gazing at this key, Feng Yue revealed a strange look in his eyes. His expression fluctuated between joy and sorrow. One moment he was excited, the next he was in pain. Finally, his mood turned extremely gloomy. After taking a long breath, he carefully put the key away. He hung it back around his neck like a necklace. Once he confirmed that outsiders could not see the key, he began to close his eyes and meditate. He was recovering the spiritual energy he had just consumed. After the last remnants of the rescue were cleared outside, it wasn't long before the entire convoy started moving again. However, this time, no one dared to speak loudly and carelessly. Although the previous battle was brief, it had left a significant shock on these young and abrupt individuals. Those who have left their physical bodies and possess spiritual roots are even more fervent in their hearts. They almost want to sprout wings and fly into the temple. They aspire to become powerful immortal masters. The next day passed without incident, but by the second day at 5 o'clock, Han Li, who was sitting in the carriage contemplating the incantation, finally sensed the temple from a distance, the so-called designated residence. although worried about the presence of high-level immortal masters stationed inside. Han Li did not dare to use the divine stone to scan closely, however, he faintly felt the mixed fluctuations of spiritual energy inside. It seemed that quite a few DJ cultivators were present within. The expressions of the surrounding people flickered with signs of excitement. Their faces were expressionless. After walking for more than 20 rituals, the two tribesmen around the carriage almost simultaneously let out a cheer. As Han Li's expression shifted, the sign on the carriage rolled up by itself. He looked into the distance. There, on the distant plain, a black dot suddenly appeared. Under the faint blue light in the cold grave, the true appearance of the black dot became clear. A wall about 3 to 4 jong high was built with stones mixed with thick logs. Behind the city wall, there were tall tents that the common people loved to inhabit, along with some simple wooden houses mixed together. From time to time, many common people entered and exited. It seemed a bit chaotic. However, among the many tents and wooden houses, one could faintly see a few stone platforms completely covered with huge light stones. The attics were sparsely present everywhere. Occasionally, 1 or 2 peculiar cultivators would enter them. This is what is referred to as the outpost. Han Li's gaze shifted as he pondered. It landed on several enormous stone pillars standing outside the walls, spaced apart at intervals. These stone pillars were dazzling, each about 20 to 30 feet tall. Clearly, the heavenly blue sanctuary had set up a large magical formation here, protecting the entire city within it. And above the entire outpost, no cultivators were seen flying in the air. Obviously, this magical formation also had the capability to restrict flight. After surveying the city, Han Li lost interest in continuing to look. He reached out to pull the carriage curtain and let it down. A quarter of an hour later, their convoy arrived at the entrance of the outpost. There were no guards here, allowing people to come and go freely. After discussing with the strong man, for reasons unknown, the two tribes split their teams again, heading in 2 different directions. Although Han Li is inside the car, he can still clearly sense everything nearby through the divine time. This encampment indeed looks just like what he saw from afar. A single word: chaos can sum it all up. Aside from a few main roads made by humans, everywhere is a disorganized array of fur tents and mismatched shabby wooden houses. Clearly, aside from those eroded buildings, the rest are temporary encampments for tribute to the temple from various tribes. However, those who need to rest here are also the tribes farthest from the temple. They are the kind of tribes that are not big enough to matter. The truly large tribes all reside right next to the temple. So aside from a few slightly more ornate large tents, the rest of the tents and wooden houses are all quite ordinary structures. Many even have patches on them, which shows the dire situation of these small tribes. After much difficulty, in a remote corner of the encampment, they found an open space. The King Lu Deer people also began to set up their own tents. Han Li got out of the car and coldly watched their actions. And after hesitating for a moment, Ying Lu actually walked over. Han Xianqi is in this chaotic place. Master Han is in chaos here. I'm afraid it's not suitable for the master to meditate in peace. However, there is a place here specifically for the masters to rest for free. It's a resting place for the masters. Would the master like to stay there for a couple of nights? We can continue our journey after a 2-day rest. What do you think, master? The old man said respectfully. All right, I understand. I'll come back here to meet you in 2 days. Han Li nodded calmly. Then, without any hesitation, she turned and left immediately. Looking ahead, it was the tallest building in this area, a huge 2-story establishment. Occasionally, cultivators would be seen entering and exiting there. Clearly, this was the resting place the old man mentioned. After walking a short distance, she arrived before the entrance. However, Han Li forgot about the 2 monstrous statues standing at the door, towering at around 10 feet high. She passed by the statues expressionlessly. Although she was confident that she disguised herself as an inconspicuous person, she still felt it was somewhat inappropriate to be among so many inconspicuous cultivators. What if there were urgent cultivators inside? There might be some trouble, after all. But with this, many abrupt people living together with cultivators, it still feels somewhat inappropriate. What if there are urgent cultivators inside? There might be some trouble. It's better to leave the base. Let's find a random place nearby to make do for a couple of days. When the time comes, we'll blend back into the convoy and continue on our way. By the time we reach the so-called Azure Sky Sanctuary, the search for him should have eased up a bit. At that time, we'll find a way to leave again. As for the remaining journey, although there's still quite a long way to the main road, if we're careful, there might still be a chance to sneak into the larger territory. With these thoughts in mind, Han Li calmly walked out of the base gate. He reached out and drew a small sword. The aura transformed into a beam of light and shot up into the sky. After flying for about 50 or 60 miles, he stopped the light above a nondescript pile of chaos. After glancing down, he landed in front of a giant stone about 5 or 6 zhang high. He sat cross-legged and released his spirit stone, confirming that there were indeed no other people within a radius of over 20 miles. He immediately turned around and flicked his fingers at the giant stone behind him. A wave of fresh sword energy surged forth. After a moment of smirking, a hollow cave about 2 zhang high appeared before him. It was just the right size for one person to enter. Han Li stepped inside and tried to sit cross-legged for a moment, feeling quite satisfied. He then walked out of the giant stone and took his stone staff. He took out a set of formation tools from the storage bag. After a flash of several rays of light, an invisible magic circle was completed. From the outside, the giant stone instantly vanished without a trace. The place was left completely empty. Han Li did not hold back. He immediately flickered and entered the magic circle. His entire person also disappeared without a sound. This area was now deserted. Time passed little by little. In the blink of an eye, a day and night had gone by. Han Li was in a meditative state in the stone cave. He quietly contemplated the incantation given by the great deity. This incantation was much smoother than he had anticipated. It seemed he had already comprehended more than half of it. This made Han Li secretly delighted. Currently, he was pondering a key issue. But suddenly, his eyelids twitched. The divine stone instantly jumped out of meditation. His face showed a hint of surprise as he opened his eyes. Has something happened to the master? As the Kirin Mingyu, who shared a mental connection with Han Li. She immediately sensed Han Li's anomaly. She couldn't help but ask, "Someone is approaching here." A cultivator in the foundation establishment stage, another in the core formation stage, but now they have stopped about 10 miles away. The aura of that foundation establishment cultivator feels somewhat familiar. It seems to be that Feng Yue. This is somewhat strange. He touched his chin. He fell into deep thought. Should I go take a look in my abandoned spirit form? After a moment of silence, he finally spoke. Forget it. Your injuries are not healed yet. I can only use my machine's cultivation. It's better not to try too much. They should be leaving soon. I can just use the divine stone here to monitor their movements. The divine stone seemed to sense something, shaking its head and saying, "Since that's the case, Han Li, when it comes to music, there will naturally be no differing opinions." It is said. So Han Li and Shang both looked at each other. They still sat quietly. But after a meal, Han Li let out a soft sigh. A look of surprise suddenly appeared on her face. This time, she vaguely did not ask much. Han Li's brows immediately furrowed. Her expression changed from dark to bright continuously, playing the senior role. If I remember correctly, you mentioned that there is a killing aura on me. It seems that only a few secret techniques can eliminate it. Among them, the Buddhist sect's techniques occupy more than half. Is that really the case? Indeed, it is. Besides the Buddhist techniques, the Confucian and Taoist sects have a few rare techniques that should also have ways to dispel evil energy. But they are definitely not as effective as the Buddhist techniques. Acting lazily like a deity, he returned. Since that's the case, the most notable characteristic of the Buddhist techniques is the establishment of cultivation laws. Most of the Buddhist techniques will exhibit 7-colored spiritual light. That much is true, right? Han Li still asked uncertainly. That's right. What did you discover? The big-eyed deity became somewhat impure. His voice also held a hint of curiosity. So, this person still has some use then. This might be an opportunity. Han Li murmured to himself softly. The big-eyed deity was confused by the question. He did not see Han Li answer him. Naturally, he became displeased. Just when he wanted to ask for clarification, Han Li seemed to have made a decision in his heart. Suddenly, he stomped his foot. His whole person abruptly transformed into a beam of golden light that shot out from the giant rock and sped away in a certain direction, breaking through the air. This action surprised both the music and the big-eyed gentleman. Although feeling puzzled, seeing Han Li in such a hurry, she could only keep all her questions bottled up inside. Over 10 miles away, Han Li arrived at her destination almost instantly. In a small patch of grassland, there was a very rare grove, only the size of Li Su. The trees were somewhat sparse and not very tall. In the middle of the grove was an open space where fish grew, and there were 2 people inside. However, one of the men in a blue robe had a patch of black blood on his back, lying motionless on the ground, appearing to be in a life or death situation. But a light of mutual aid was emerging from his body, presenting a dazzling 7 colors, exceptionally brilliant. Nearby, another person, an old man in a purple robe with hawk-like eyes, was wielding a fiery red flying sword, turning it into numerous sword shadows, striking at the light. Although the seven-colored light was extraordinary, it began to sway uncontrollably. The brilliance suddenly flashed, calling out to you. The concealed silence appeared. Naturally, it startled the old man with eagle eyes below. The old man was taken aback, but as he raised his hand, the divine stone swept across. He discovered that Han Li's cultivation level was merely a facade of a machine. His heart felt a bit more at ease. He suddenly harbored thoughts of killing to silence. With a wave of his hand, a flash of black light shot out like a fleeting chicken coop. It turned out to be a three-edged nail wrapped in black energy. At an astonishing speed, Han Li snorted coldly. Without a word, he touched the top of his head. A dark green cloud shot out from above his head with a whoosh. Instantly, it transformed into a large green hand with sharp teeth. It reached out to grab the black light. The old man saw this and was stunned. Before he understood what kind of technique this was, with a puff, his lifelong dream was snatched away like a straw by the large hand. In an instant, he lost contact with his mind. At the same time, without pausing, it rushed downwards. This sudden turn of events scared the old man out of his wits. His hands fumbled in a panic, trying to summon the red splash back to protect himself. But the dark green hand flashed in the middle. But the dark green hand flashed on the way, disappeared without a trace. In the next moment, a bizarre scene suddenly appeared above the old man. Instantly, it transformed into a gigantic fist and smashed down hard. The purple-robed elder let out a few screams. The person was smashed into a pulp. Then, the dark green fist transformed back into a large hand. It reached out into the void and grabbed at the elder's remains. Immediately, a green light the size of an egg shot confidently into the 5 fingers. The large hand then shot back towards Han Li. After a swirl, it transformed into a dark green and landed right above Han Li's head. At this moment, he held the dark 3-edged spike in one hand and the green light in the other, wearing a cheerful expression on his face. His brows slightly moved, facing the sudden human attack. No matter how urgent the situation was, he didn't use his second reason. It was better to keep it for escaping. But now, he decided to give it a little test. Its power seemed too far exceed his expectations. With just a slight use of profound transformation, he easily killed a single cultivator. It seems the reason is just that an ordinary cultivator still cannot resist. While pondering this in his heart, Han Li silently floated down, heading towards the 7-colored light. At this moment, that lipstick red splashed, because the old man's physical body was behind. Even the soul transformed from fear was being restrained. Naturally, it lost control and fell to the side, flickering with faint spiritual light, not moving at all, shouting at you but not being answered. It appeared like this, walking on its own towards the 7-colored light, observing carefully. At this point, it could already clearly see the anomaly. This light all came from a light blue jade pendant floating within. This object was suspended above the blue-robed person, several feet high, shining with 7-colored spiritual light. Occasionally, some strange Buddhist patterns flickered and appeared within the spiritual light. It was indeed the jade pendant that Han Li had shown to the music. Han ordered you to forget this jade pendant. After a moment, it slowly conveyed and asked, "How is it, Senior?" This is a magical tool refined by the Buddha sect, right, from the materials and refining techniques. Naturally, it cannot be considered a Buddhist treasure, but it has indeed been blessed by a high monk of the Buddha sect. It has the appearance of Buddhist restrictions. Otherwise, relying solely on a top-grade magical tool, it wouldn't be so spiritually attuned and able to resist. It won't be so spiritually connected and can resist. The treasure of the Dawn period has been attacking for such a long time. It seems that the Feng family has some connections with the Buddha sect. The great-eyed god has completely understood the meaning of Han Li's previous words. Lang Heng said indifferently after a pause. Hearing the great-eyed god's certainty, Han Li felt a surge of joy in his heart. Finally, this time it wasn't a wasted effort. Thinking of this, he stepped forward without saying a word. With a single hand raised, a palm gently pressed against the barrier, a thin layer of blue light appeared on the surface of his palm. With his current cultivation, he could no longer manipulate much of the Qianlin feast. These flames were already the limit of what he could control now. But even so, the 7-colored light could not withstand the hunger of the ice flames at all. With a loud bang, the light shattered and disappeared like a bubble. Han Li walked up to the blue-robed man. After glancing at the black blood stains on his back, he couldn't help but frown. At this moment, he sensed that the aura of the dead was not only chaotic and weak, but also faintly emanated a sense of death. This clearly indicated that his life was about to come to an end. Without saying a word, Han Li raised his hand. A legal decision struck him. Then he opened his mouth again. A burst of azure energy shot out. It transformed into a blue mist that enveloped the blue-robed man. Then he gently adjusted his robe. After a gust of wind blew by, the body on the ground was flipped over. Han Lini glanced over and immediately gasped in shock. Indeed, the rumors were true, but his face had completely turned pitch black. His lips were even a dark purple. It had become truly terrifying. Han Li's expression turned somewhat grim, but after some consideration, the divine stone instantly enveloped the opponent's entire body, and in his eyes, a reckless light flickered. He activated the minking spiritual eye. This person, with such poison surrounding him, should have died immediately, yet he still had a breath left. This was somewhat strange. Han Li naturally would not let this go easily. He began to investigate carefully. After a moment, Han Li found something. With one hand raised, he grabbed the opponent's collar. With a sound, the opponent's clothing was torn open slightly. It revealed a silver-white keychain to his chest. At this moment, the key sparkled with a white light. It continuously dispelled the poison gas from the blue-robed man's chest. However, outside of his chest, his body had also turned a dark color. With a flicker in her eyes, Han Li grabbed one of the blue-robed man's arms. Immediately, a clear light emerged. A layer of greenish spiritual light surged from Han Li's palm towards the blue-robed man. She aimed to gradually push the black gas away from him. But after a moment, the green spiritual energy that had just reached the blue-robed man's arm suddenly turned black in a strange manner. It rapidly spread back towards Han Li's palm. Along the spiritual energy, Han Li let out a startled cry. She suddenly flicked her hand, immediately severing the connection of spiritual energy on the man's arm. Her face turned slightly pale. It was indeed the bitter poison from the deadly toxin. Han, you've wasted your efforts. This person is simply beyond saving. The big-eyed deity chuckled darkly, looking somewhat gleeful at the misfortune. Upon hearing this, Han Li couldn't help but roll her eyes. At the same time, she coldly huffed. Perhaps I can't completely detoxify him, but I can at least make him temporarily sober. But it allows them to temporarily awaken, even living for another 10 days or half a month. This won't be difficult for me. It's just that the elixir required is quite a hefty sum. I don't even know if this person is worth it to pay such a high price. After saying this, Han Li slowly stood up, his face showing a hint of coolness. The master can let him wake up first. It's not too late to ask some questions before deciding. Ming Yu chuckled and suggested, that's true. If we don't clarify his relationship with the great Jin Buddha sect. Han Li, who felt somewhat reluctant, sighed. He said this. Finally, he slapped his storage bag with one hand, and a small white bottle appeared in his hand. He lifted the bottle, and a fiery red pill resembling an apricot fell into his palm. Looking at this high-grade elixir made for the new year, refined from a special material, a trace of regret appeared on his face. This was originally meant to enhance spiritual power. For refining purposes, using it here is indeed a bit wasteful. If my magical power hadn't been sealed, I would rather not have been injured and directly use the soul-searching secret technique. Then, I wouldn't have to go through this trouble. With a single hand, he pinched the blue-robed man's chin. With an extremely skilled flick of the wrist, he cleverly dislodged the jaw. The man's mouth involuntarily opened wide. With the other hand, he flicked. The elixir was wrapped in a ball of hydrogen, shooting into the blue-robed man's mouth. Han Li released his hands. With one hand, he rubbed his waist. A shiny silver needle appeared at his fingertips. It shimmered with light. The silver needle transformed into several strands of silver thread, quickly piercing into various parts of the blue-robed man's body. In an instant, it was completed. Where it pierced, dark poisonous blood shot out, releasing a foul smell that made one want to retch. He even stood up against the odds, standing aside with his hands behind his back, quietly waiting for the other party to wake up. After a full tea's worth of time, after a large pool of poisonous blood was released from Feng Yue, a sound finally came from his mouth, indicating that he was about to wake up. With a flash of his inner gaze, he raised both hands and flicked his 10 fingers. After a gust of wind shot through, the still flowing poisonous blood immediately stopped. Then, with a sharp flick, the second vowel immediately transformed into a dark cloud. The light slanted into the forest beside, disappeared without a trace. So, you, the man in the blue robe, have finally opened your eyes. You can see clearly the depths of Han Li. A sound of surprise escaped his mouth. Struggling, he sat up. Why are you so surprised to see me? Han Li glanced at Feng Yue. He said lightly, it was my fellow Taoist who saved me. Where is that old thief? Feng Zhen. Although the young man's voice was weak, it was still filled with vigilance. Are you talking about that one in the piercing robe? He's over there on the ground. Han Li casually swept his gaze to the side. He said nonchalantly. Feng Yue's eyes shifted slightly. He strained to turn his neck. Finally, he saw the disfigured corpse of the old man in the purple robe. His face showed signs of shock. Then, he finally revealed a look of hatred. Then his gaze shifted back to Han Li's face, revealing an extremely strange expression. Could it be that this old thief was also killed by Han Li? It seems that Han Li's abilities are truly profound and unfathomable. The grace of saving my life. Feng will remember it in my heart. The wind has been etched in the heart. I will definitely report it later. Feng Yue asked tentatively. At the same time, one hand reached to the waist to pull out a pill. He stuffed it into his mouth. The other hand pushed against the ground as he tried to stand up. But he had only stood halfway, when his legs went weak and he fell back to the ground. What's going on? Why do I have no strength at all? Feng Yue fell to the ground. His face turned pale. A hint of panic appeared. I will report it later. It seems that you still don't know your situation. My friend, I called for you, but you didn't offer to help. Instead, you said calmly, "What do you mean by that? What is my current situation? You placed a restriction on me." The young man glared at Han Li, his face showing signs of anger and shock. Placed a restriction on you? You really think too highly of yourself. Do I need to place any restrictions to control you? Just take a look at your current state. He sneered coldly. With a flick of his hand, he threw a small object beside Feng Yue. A small object was thrown beside the maple leaf. It turned out to be an ordinary bronze mirror. Feng Yue heard this. Her face was filled with a golden hue of joy. But Han Li showed no expression at all. She gritted her teeth and picked up the mirror. She took a quick glance into it. What's going on? My face. Is this poison? When did I get poisoned so deeply? Could it be that the old thief used something toxic? Under Feng Yue's sword, her soul seemed to fly away. She couldn't help but shout in a hoarse voice. Then she hurriedly dumped the storage bag at her waist onto the ground. After a flash of white light, a large pile of bottles and jars appeared on the ground. She quickly found a few bottles. Without thinking twice, she stuffed pills into her mouth. Han Li watched coldly. She stood by, allowing the other party to take the pills by herself. Not saying a word, after applying the pills, Feng Yue didn't care to talk to Han Li anymore. She immediately closed her eyes and sat down to circulate her energy. She wanted to expel the poison with the medicinal properties. But just after a while, she opened her eyes again. The look of terror on her face deepened by 3 points. How is this possible? So many detoxifying holy medicines, and not one of them worked. What kind of strange poison did I get hit by? This person finally realized how powerful the poison is. They became extremely anxious. Although I have never seen it before, it should be the bitter poison that one feels when affected. At this moment, Han Li slowly opened his mouth to speak again about the bitter poison. They actually used this poison against me. That old thief really has allied with the Kong family. According to rumors, the Kong family just happens to have this kind of poison. His face instantly turned pale and bloodless. He couldn't help but scream. The Kong family's Han Li moved slightly, but immediately returned to her usual demeanor. No, if I were really affected by the poison, I should have fled for my life immediately. How could I still be awake? The young man suddenly thought of this point. He didn't know where he got the strength to stand up. He turned over and got up to question Han Li. Don't be ungrateful. If it weren't for wanting to ask you some questions, I wouldn't waste a Hao Yuan pill on you. You can keep your little life for now. You still have to rely on that thing around your neck to temporarily fend off the poison gas. Otherwise, if the poison attacks your heart, even with immortal pills or divine medicines, you wouldn't be able to wake up again. Han Li's expression darkened. He said bluntly, "You move this item." When the young man heard Han Li mention the silver key, he realized it was as precious as his own life. The hidden thing was unexpectedly exposed in front of him. Suddenly, he felt alarmed. He managed to calm down for a moment. I am also very curious. A foundation-building cultivator was afflicted with bitterness. He did not immediately avoid it. Naturally, he needed to investigate the reasons. However, this Hao Yuan pill only temporarily suppresses the poison gas. After 1 day, the poison gas will attack again. You are still undoubtedly doomed. Han Li, he said, I seem to have heard of the Hao Yuan pill. Is it a very precious elixir? If I take this pill again, can it continue to suppress the poison gas? Feng Yue pondered for a moment, and asked nervously. The other party had actually heard of this elixir, which surprised Han Li a bit, but he coldly replied, continuing to take it can temporarily save your life. But do you know what this pill is made from? This is not a detoxifying elixir at all, but a breakthrough pill. It helps to break through bottlenecks and enhance cultivation. Spiritual pills are essentially valuable but powerless. Han Li didn't say anything afterwards, but the implication was clearly understood. A simple elixir to enhance one's cultivation. Even if the materials are precious like jade, it's still a fleeting moment. Hearing this, I was momentarily speechless. However, if you really want to survive, there are indeed ways to do so. Hanli suddenly laughed, asking what the method was. As long as it can save my younger brother's life, I will agree to any conditions. Blushing, I said excitedly. He said joyfully,